Hello and welcome to Alex's Model Kits. This video is about the kit I'm working on at the moment, which is part of a group build. This group build is organised by a chap called Ian Poulton, who has a YouTube channel called UK Scale Modeler, and he also runs a group build on Facebook called the Group Build Group. And Ian sort of picks the topics or puts up topics for voting on every now and then, and does a really good job, I think, of having a really broad selection of topics. He's quite inclusive. I think, it'd be very easy to sort of always go down the path of aircraft in the Second World War, aircraft in the First World War, or tanks, or whatever else, and he does a really good job of making broad selections that allow people to take a slightly different view on things and have their own interpretation of what could be involved. So the topic we have at the moment is spaceflight, and this is because this year is the 50th anniversary of the moon landings, and so to reflect that and to celebrate that, Ian thought it would be a good idea to have a group build that talks about spaceflight itself, and that includes, to give you some idea of how broad things are, it includes anything to do with the space race. So there are a couple of model makers who've made the helicopters that were used to collect astronauts after they splashed down. There are some model makers out there who've gone for the sci-fi option, and they've made Starship Enterprises and so on. Ian is working on a couple of kits, or he's completed one, I think, which is the Vostok for the Russian space race, and he's also working on the Virgin Galactic kit at the moment. And the kit I'm working on is this kit here. This is the Airfix Saturn V at 1/144 scale. This kit was first made by Airfix in 1980. I made it when I was a child, around about, I'm guessing, 1982, maybe 83, 84, that kind of time period. And I liked the kit when I was a child, and this is pretty much as I remember it. It's a nice kit. It's a little, as I say, it's a little old. 1980. It's showing its age. Plastic is quite thick in places. It is quite difficult to get things to meet up properly. But the nice thing about it, the thing I like about it, is the fact that you might imagine with a rocket kit, it's just going to be one long tube and then nothing else. But actually Airfix do a really nice job of allowing you to build the stages. So you get to build stage 1, and then you get, over here you've got stage 2, which kind of goes above stage 1. And then you have stage 3, which sits in there above the stage 2. And then finally you have the lunar lander, and you have the service module and the command module, which go in as well. So it's a nice kit because it allows you to either sort it all together and show it as one thing, or to take it all apart into its constituent parts and kind of show how the engineering works within. I had to do a bit of scratch building for the stage 2 because Airfix had this. They have this part here which sits in there, which the idea was that would sit in there, sort of in the back end there. And every reference photograph I found of the rear end of the stage 2, that piece wasn't there. I haven't seen a single photograph where it is there to be added to the kit. Instead, what they have is a crossbeam, and they mounted a central engine onto that crossbeam. So I ended up slicing off a portion of this sort of conical area, and then making a crossbeam and the back end at the underside of the fuel tank to mount the engine into. And I'm quite happy with the end result. It's pretty good. So that was all fine. And then I had a look at the cover of a book that I've been reading. This book here. I've been reading this as I've been going along, making my kit, and I realised with a slight sense of frustration that actually on the cover, that's been staring at me in the face all along, is just down there. That's the heat shield they're talking about. So, and when I read about it, they do talk about a heat shield. I'm guessing though, because as I say, I haven't seen a single photograph with that heat shield in place. I'm guessing that it was originally built with a heat shield and then removed later on. Either way, it's been removed from mine, so that is that. So that's pretty much it. I think the Lunar Module I'm currently working on, that is a mixture of various colours, and there's a bit of black and gold and so on the lander, which I'm not sure you can see there. And for the gold, what I'm doing is I'm using the foil wrapper from a chocolate biscuit, and that's actually looks quite nice. I'm quite pleased with the end result, because if you look at photographs of the lunar lander or the LEM, the Lunar Excursion Module, it was originally called the Lunar Excursion Module, LEM, and they eventually dropped that title because they didn't like the word excursion. They thought it sounded like it was a bit of a picnic, and so it just became the Lunar Module. But I think the name was stuck by then. People had called it a LEM so much they just carried on with that. Why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that because if you look at photographs of the LEM, then you'll see that the underside, that gold area, is kind of a heat shield. It's like a blanket. It's quite wrinkly, and so I wanted to use the foil to get that wrinkled effect in there, and I'm reasonably pleased with it. That's stuck in place with PVA glue, and yeah, it's not so bad. I need to do the underside. That's going to happen this afternoon. The underside needs to be gold. The central area would be silver, and then obviously the engine would be a darker metal colour. So yes, that's pretty much where I am. I started painting the kit today with a different paint. The previous paint I've been using was Humbrol's 130, which is a satin white, and I found that the satin white was not quite as white as I wanted it to be. It seemed to be a very light cream, a very, very off-white, and looking at all the photographs, the Saturn V does seem to be a really clear, crystal, bright white, and so I wasn't happy about using Humbrol. So I looked around for alternatives. I was actually quite keen to use the Mission Models paint, because I've heard good things about them, but they seem to be, I can't find satin white anywhere. Even their own website, they're sold out on satin white. So I went instead for Tamiya, and I've got the XF2 flat white, the idea being I could just put a satin varnish over the top. And this is not working for me in the slightest. I've put it on to various parts, and what's happened is it's beaded up. You put it on with a brush. I'm a brush painter, I haven't got an airbrush. Put it on, run the brush down, and sometimes run the brush down and it's fine, and sometimes you run a brush down and it just suddenly you just get these beads, these rolls of paint just rolling up and then sticking to the kit. So I've had to wait for that to dry and then sand back where these rolls were, and unfortunately there are some bits now that are stuck on in between some very fine veins, so I'm going to have to get a needle file and try and get rid of that as well. So that's pretty frustrating really. I've tried that a couple of times. I've tried it on a couple of test pieces off the kit now I've realised there's a problem. It's doing the same thing. So this is not going to work for me. I do get quite varied results with Tamiya paints. Sometimes I get some really nice results, and other times it just turns into a bit of a disaster, and this is one of those disastrous moments. So that's pretty frustrating really. I had thought that by the end of today I'd have several coats of pure white onto this kit, and I could start masking up to do the black markings, and then really make some headway. And instead of which, that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to sand it back and prep it. Probably I would just go back with the Humbrol and just accept it's not going to be quite as white as I'd like, but there's no alternative really. I can't wait around for any other paints. I just need to get on with this. The group finishes on the 20th of July. there's still quite a bit of time. I've still got over a month to go, but we all know what I'm like with group build kits. I do tend to take a while, and I think every group build I've done so far, I've just missed the deadline to get it done for various reasons, and I really want to get one done within that timescale. So this afternoon I shall be sending it back, and then over the week I shall be just applying thin coats of Humbrol and hoping I can get a decent result out of it. I also have a second kit that I wanted to do for this group build, which is it's not that, even though it's a Star Wagon. That's not really gonna I think qualify. It's actually this, which is a slightly weird one. I'll even show you the inside. This is going to be a kit of, well, actually there are three reasons why I'm doing this kit. The first is this is going to be a kit of the launch pad for a Saturn V. And there's three reasons why I want to do this kit. I know I'm not going to get it done on time for the group build. It's just, this will be something I will do outside the group build at some point in the future. But the first reason is that Airfix do provide a base for the rocket, which is this piece here, which is fine. It's a very chunky piece of kit, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. But it's quite a tall rocket, and I don't know, I just think that, you know, maybe something a bit bigger might be better. So that's the first reason why I want to do it. The second reason is that the whole thing about these Saturn V's and the whole moon race side of things is that I just admire the scale at which things were done. Everything about this rocket is just big. You know, it's very hard to imagine. I haven't seen a Saturn V up close. I do hope one day to go to the States and have a good look around one of those rockets. But everything about it is just vast on just an extraordinary scale. And to give you some idea, Airfix do actually give you the 3 astronauts, and the idea is this is supposed to sit inside the command module, but I'd much rather leave it outside just to kind of keep that sense of perspective. And to give you some idea, this is one of the F1 engines that's going to go on the bottom of the stage 1, and this is how it is in the scale of the astronauts to the men, of astronauts to the engine. This engine, as far as I'm aware, I don't know much about the more recent developments with SpaceX and so on, but certainly until very recently this was the most powerful engine that had ever been made. This burns, a single engine burns 2.6 tons of fuel. 2.6? I'm sure it's 2.6. Yeah, 2.6 tons of fuel a second. It has a mixture of rocket propellant and liquid oxygen, and it burns that as a ratio of I think 0.8 of rocket fuel, 0.8 of a ton of rocket fuel to 1.8 of liquid oxygen every second. And there are 5 of these, so you think about that, that's over 10 tons, over 11 tons of fuel mixture being burnt every second. These 5 engines, when they fire up, produced more power than the UK's National Grid Service for the time that they were running. It's just an extraordinary thing, and it's not just the rockets themselves, it's the whole infrastructure. It's the towers that go to make it, this enormous, huge buildings that support the rocket, that stand alongside it, that keep it powered up and keep it running and fuel it up. It's the tractors, it's that platform on huge caterpillar wheels that takes it from the assembly point to the launch pad. The scale of everything they did was so vast. It never ceases to amaze me. And obviously all those people that are involved, everyone looks at the astronauts as being, you know, these are the guys, and rightly so. They are an extraordinary breed of human beings to go and sit in a small can and fly to the moon. I mean, you know, the nerve and skill and composure of these guys is just extraordinary, and so everyone rightly sort of focuses on them, but it's very easy to forget the army of people that went into making these rockets happen and making the launches happen. I think NASA employed at the height of the space race something like 40,000 people. And so I wanted to do a launch tower, partially because I think it will really help when I finish the kit. It'll really help to present a nice base for the kit, and partially because I think it's in its own right, the launch tower is an extraordinary piece of engineering and something I find very interesting as well. And the third reason for doing this is because there is a YouTube channel called Frankie Day, or Frankie Day Modelling, and he's kind of sort of like royalty in my view. He's sort of a bit like he's just that established modeller. He's just been doing it for such a long time. I think he started probably when he was a young man, and I think he's never stopped doing it. So he's always been learning and always been developing and always been trying things. And the thing I like about Frankie is that, well, quite apart from the fact that he has a great way of talking to the camera and a great way of getting you involved, one of the things I really admire about him is that he doesn't stick to any particular medium. Most model makers, me certainly, anything I've done so far has been styrene. They've been the straightforward Airfix kits, and for him, he'll make anything. He doesn't really care. You know, he'll go for, if it's plastic, if it's styrene, if it's balsa wood, or if it's paper models. He'll just do whatever it is, just because it's a model with instructions. So he'll make it, and I really like that approach. I think that's a really good approach. So he recently did a couple of paper models of ships, and it's really quite hard to remember what you're looking at when he shows you the finished item. You have to remind yourself this is actually a paper model. They are remarkable. So this kit here, this is also a paper model. This is quite for me, quite a big departure. Like I say, everything I've done so far has been styrene. I expected this to come on flat sheets, and it doesn't. It comes rolled up. The instructions are, I've printed them out, and I don't know where I've put them. But the instructions, they come on a PDF file, and it's 44 pages of A4. So there's an awful lot to be done on this, and I am looking forward to doing it. I don't know where the instructions are. I've obviously filed them somewhere for safekeeping. But yes, there's a lot to do. So yeah, I had thought I'd just be able to sort of get that done very quickly and get it done in time for the group build. But I'm pretty certain once I started leafing through the instructions, it's like, no, this won't happen in time. But that's fine. I'll let you know when I start. I'll let you know how I'm getting on. And Frankie, I don't suppose you ever watch this channel. If you stumble across this video and you've got any advice, I'm definitely keen to hear it. Right. So I think. Oh yeah. One last thing I was going to say was that when this arrived, a neighbour took it in for me, and it was quite entertaining to see that it's got the NASA logo on the front. So they were quite intrigued. Well, what are you getting from NASA? And at the time, I wasn't entirely sure that was a kit, because I expected long, broad sheets. So I was as mystified as they were. But yes, I think they now think I'm something a bit more special than I actually am, but there we go. So I think that's it for the update. I think this has gone on for quite long enough, and I will let you know how the painting goes for the Saturn V, and how the paper kit goes for the launch tower when I start that. Okay, well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again. Thanks then. Bye.